Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, I wanted to talk about finance, the economy, cryptocurrencies, and closing out 2021 and the outlook in 2022. So I'm going to try to get through all this in just a simple conversation. And of course, if there's any comments, you can always post them down below in the comments section, any thoughts and ideas as well. But just jump right in there. So I guess one of the first things would be is to start talking about what has happened this year with finance, right? That's pretty important. What has happened this year? So one thing or many things that didn't happen this year, which would be better at explaining what happened this year, is that we didn't get a return on the money that the government printed and handed out from the previous year via the pandemic. We didn't get a return on that. And some of you remember that during that time, a lot of the economy started shutting down. So this was a great time or a great excuse to print money and hand money out. And a lot of things happened inside that. But so what were those things from the pandemic that we didn't start paying back this year? Well, they pretty much gave stimulus to every citizen. If you were over the age of 16 and you had worked, they were given stimulus directly to them. There was an increase to the unemployment payments. I believe in some cases it was like $600 increased on top of normal unemployment. There was an increase to the financial housing and food assistance. Banks kept receiving bailouts, obviously, and small businesses got bailouts as well. So during the pandemic, a lot of things had happened. A lot of people lost their jobs because it was unsafe to go to work, as the news told it to us. So then that led to them, hey, we need to get money in the hands of these people that can't go to work because of this pandemic, right? And then we started realizing that people couldn't pay for their homes. So then there had to be some way to protect these people that couldn't go to work from being evicted for not being able to pay their rent. There also had to be food assistance, increase in SNAP benefits because children weren't able to go to school because of the pandemic. Parents were staying home that couldn't go to work because of the pandemic. So that created a lot of room for printing money and handing out. That wasn't the only places that money was printed and handed out and sent to, but that's some of the more important things that we heard on the Voodoo box. Now, the banks were getting bailouts. They had been getting bailouts before the pandemic. For years, they had been getting bailouts. We know them as, what do they call them? The overnight. Oh gosh, they cleverly worded it to where they would buy bonds from the banks, and then the banks had the opportunity to essentially get those bonds back. And those bonds were just debt contracts. So essentially, you can call it a bailout because the federal government got involved, or the central bank, or the Fed, as well as the Treasury, got involved to be able to print up these monies and then give it to the banks for those contracts or bonds, which then made the banks liquid. They now had money to do loans again, so that people could take loans out, school, cars, homes, and get the economy moving forward again. All right. So aside from that, we saw a PPP, right? I think that's what it was. They printed money up and loaned money out, and we saw, scams and all these things came of that. But a lot of people are serving time for those criminal activities and so on and so forth. A lot of those things happened, and we didn't this year. We didn't start paying it back. we got to a point where, they didn't want to do anything with the debt ceiling, which just meant that, they were going to be hiking the debt ceiling up, which I don't know if it really means that much. I just really don't know. But as far as how much debt the United States has, well, I mean, we could always go to US, the debt clock, usdebtclock.org. And if we were just to scan that with our own eyes, we'd see that it's really not the debt that the United States as a company is holding that's really that high. It's high, but I mean, you could clearly see that the United States as a whole, including all its citizens, they're holding massive amounts of debt, upwards of 200 trillion. So that didn't get discussed, and that still exists. And so there wasn't any emphasis put to any of these things. It's kind of like take loans, pay them back if you can. Don't worry about it if you can't. The Fed prints up money, puts it back into the bank's hands to get rid of those debts that you took from the banks that you couldn't pay back, that you just, hey, man, I'll worry about it another time. Well, those things got picked up by the Fed, and so then the banks were made liquid so they could only do it all over again. All right, that's what was going on with the money, the finance. I mean, this is stuff we can look up and see clearly just by looking it up. We also, because this money was printed, we've been depreciating. The dollar's been depreciating in value for years. It's nothing new. But I mean, we're getting to a point now where most nations look at the United States and say, your money's worthless. We don't want it. It's a lot of things. Trade deals gone bad, right? People saying that they won't accept. I believe Russia might have said it. They're not going to accept the U.S. dollar for payment. And I think China said they didn't want bonds, U.S. bonds, and then they were going to sell those and get rid of those. And some of these countries started getting rid of them, selling those bonds, and they were saying, we are not going to accept the U.S. dollar for payment. We don't want that, So it leads us to the crypto space becoming more pertinent. For all these years, the crypto spaces exist, but it just wasn't, that important. It wasn't that necessary. But here we are closing 2021, and it's become the main topic of conversation around the town. And all towns let that be so, because all nations are involved in crypto. It's to the point where the IMF said all governments will work with to paraphrase, should be working with cryptocurrency. All governments. They're planning to produce central bank digital currencies. We have stable coin currencies. All these different things exist. And it's becoming more popular here in 2021. Closing out this year, we've seen a lot of talk about it, right? Laws, legislation, regulation, all that. So, as we close out this year, financially, the United States isn't looking so hot. We're looking at inflation. We're looking at the price of things at highs, all-time highs. We're looking at store shelves that are empty in certain locations. We're looking at supplies being cut low. I mean, when you talk about vehicles, car manufacturers have shut down plants. Let's talk about a restaurant, Burger King, a fast food restaurant. I've never seen so many of those restaurants close down. It's just, wow. What did we see? Did we see JCPenney's close down? We saw a lot of different businesses having to close down because it was non-affordable to operate these businesses. Right? It only tells me that when prices increase, if you can't keep up with that flow, you're going to have to let go. So we've seen inflation. We've seen businesses having to call it quits. We've seen businesses shrinking. All right. And alongside the pandemic, could we use the excuse the pandemic? Could we? Who knows? Take your pick. Either way, as we close out 2021, it's not looking good for the United States. It's just not. Now, going into 2022. So, going into 2022, we already see closing out in 2021, cryptos being a major thing. All right. We already see that. We already see nations like El Salvador, countries like Mexico, South America. You've got places like Venezuela and Colombia, turning Africa, countries in Africa, turning to cryptocurrencies. You're seeing them turning to them and opening that door for payment. You're seeing it even in the United States. It's just not big talk. It's going to just pop up and poof, there it is right in front of you, and you're going to be shocked. But nonetheless, we're seeing that all over. So what do I think is going to happen in 2022? Well, I think the dollar's on its way out the door. It's been on its way out the door for some time. This is not new information, but as we look at how much debt is behind the dollar's kind of worthless. We're in the midst of inflation. Will we see hyperinflation? I hope not, but we're in the midst of inflation. And we're definitely looking at cryptocurrency having to save the day. Can gold save the day? It's a precious metal. It holds value. It can keep you at the value of the money that you have if you use it that way. But for the greatest part, no, I don't think it's going to grow wealth. I think if you're in the space of cryptocurrencies, you have the potential to swap places with some of these rich people that weren't smart enough to get into that space. So I do see 2022 being something major for cryptocurrency holders, and things are going to be looking good moving forward in that direction. So as a whole, the United States isn't looking good as a business. We know the business model. It's been with the dollar and it's been with debt. We've withdrawn military troops from the different locations they've been at. I believe this started around the time when Obama was in office, and it just continued from there. And so as we withdraw, and as this pandemic separates and pushes people back, and as it cuts ties with trade and so on and so forth, and with the destruction of the weather, it's actually diminishing and destroying a lot of countries financially. And the only outlook, or the way out, is probably going to be through cryptocurrencies. So we only have that to look forward to in the future. That's kind of the way I see it. And I thought I'd just share that with you all. And maybe you all could think about it. And again, share your thoughts and ideas down below. So anyways, if you liked the video, hit the like button. You can always subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, you could hit that bell for notification.